You know what group of dinosaur is completely awesome and completely iconic? The sauropods. Sauropods are one of the quintessential dinosaurs. For the most part, when someone mentions the word dinosaur, they'll think of, T-Rex, but they'll also think of something like Brachiosaurus or Brontosaurus or something like that. Sauropods are one of the most dinosaurs, if that makes sense. There are, of course, sauropods in the Jurassic franchise, and so that is worth talking about. Let's go ahead and take a look at the on-screen appearances of the sauropods in the Jurassic franchise. Again, this is only focused on on-screen appearances similar to the Spinosaurids and the Ceratopsians of this series, with one exception, because there's one that I think is worth talking about. So anyway, let's get right into it. We'll start off with the first one that we ever see, Laura here, which is a Brachiosaurus. Absolutely love this scene. This is one of my all-time favorite movie scenes, just in general. Just the cheap ride up to this point, and then just witnessing the Brachiosaurus in all of her might and all of her glory in the broad daylight, and the CGI still looks amazing. You really get the sense of scale of this animal next to our main characters, and then of course the shot of the two more Brachiosaurs in the water with the Parasaurolophus. Absolutely amazing. Literally, it always brings a smile to my face every time I see it. I also love the design of the animal. Of course, this isn't actually Brachiosaurus. The design is actually Giraffatitan. And if you're interested in the history of that, check out the many interpretations of Brachiosaurus. I go in depth. I talk about that a little bit more in depth at the beginning of the video. So if that's something you're interested in, then be sure to check that out. Regardless, it's still a great, even Giraffatitan design. And the CGI looks absolutely phenomenal. The animatronic that they use later in the movie when Grant is playing tug of war with it, which wouldn't be fair in the slightest because that's a really big multi-ton animal, but the animatronic just looks phenomenal, and everything looks great. I love the sounds that they give them too. I love that they're singing and things like that. One of the things that helps emphasize the fact that these are actual animals rather than monsters, which I think should be emphasized with things like dinosaurs, more than just monsters. Of course, in Jurassic Park 3, we do get a different type of Brachiosaurus. Initially, I assumed that this was an example of sexual dimorphism. I thought that the green ones represented the males, and these ones, the duller grays and brownish ones, represent females. But it turns out, and this is something I completely missed, it turns out that this is just a different variant of Brachiosaurus, and they even have their own version of sexual dimorphism. The males have a brighter red head, whereas the females have a duller red head. I didn't know that. A lot of people pointed that out to me in the many interpretations of Brachiosaurus. So I appreciate everybody for pointing that out. But I do love this design too. I love the way that the head looks. I love the green colors with the contrasting red head. Of course, those are complementary colors, so they go together very well. So across the board, I think the Brachiosaurus looks absolutely phenomenal in the Jurassic franchise. And that also goes for its appearance in later films, such as Fallen Kingdom, which unfortunately we got to see it pass on, and they confirmed that was the very same Brachiosaurus that we saw in the very first movie. That was technically Laura. They didn't have to confirm that. They just wanted to twist the knife, I genuinely do think that scene is extremely sad, though. Just seeing the Brachiosaurus, hearing her cry as she's running out on the dock and then gets engulfed by the pyroclastic flow, that's not cool. That's just not cool. Genuinely makes you sad. Just makes you sad. Regardless, Brachiosaurus is a great start to this list. Next up in the Lost World Jurassic Park, we have Mamenchisaurus. Kind of like a blink and you'll miss it dinosaur. We only see it during the stampede scene, which is awesome. It's a dinosaur that shows up has very little screen time, but they put the effort into making a full model. I just think that's cool. I don't know why. And they also did a really good job at differentiating it from the Brachiosaurus. It has a thinner neck overall and a longer neck, and just a thinner build in general, and not nearly as stocky as the Brachiosaurus is. Which is good. I like that they differentiate it that way. But I think it's pretty standard overall. I think that they do a pretty decent job at, again, just making it stand out as its own, even though it has very little screen presence. So in all, just a very cool addition to the franchise. And then after that, we have Apatosaurus, which makes its debut in Jurassic World in a very sad scene as well. I'm convinced that the Jurassic franchise nowadays, the World trilogy, just doesn't like us to like sauropods. They're just these are now cannon fodder. It's very sad. I like them here, though. They kind of have the feel of older reconstructions of dinosaurs like Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus, which are separate, by the way. Those two are separate genera. If you're interested in more about that, check out the many interpretations of Apatosaurus/Brontosaurus. I talk about that in the middle. Anyway, I like it here. I like the colors. They kind of lean into what this might look like if it was designed in the 90s, which I think is a good direction to take it. And the animatronic, the only animatronic used in Jurassic World, looks fantastic too. I think it's really good to have the actors work with something like that because it helps us believe their performance. Not much else I can really say. It's definitely not my favorite Apatosaurus design right now that's currently going to Prehistoric Kingdom. I do think that the neck could be a little bit thicker all around, but I think that it does a good job and captures Apatosaurus pretty well. I think I could probably guess it was Apatosaurus. If not, I would probably guess Brontosaurus, if I wasn't outright told, of course. So I think that it does its job well, if that makes sense. And then there is Dreadnoughtus, another sauropod introduced in the Jurassic franchise. I like the way that they look here. I'm a little bit more particular of the Prehistoric Planet Dreadnoughtus, but I think that this works in the context of the Jurassic franchise. I like that it has a thicker neck too, and a very kind of straight neck too as well. And it's also stocky like the Brachiosaurus, but it still feels distinctively different. It lacks the type of bump that Brachiosaurus possessed. Brachiosaurus had a very small bump in life, but Giraffatitan had this huge bump. The colors I think look really cool, and this shot in particular looks absolutely amazing. They used a lot of kind of silhouette shots in terms of Dreadnoughtus, even in the prologue. I think that they look great. They look very imposing, just very mighty, which is a great direction to take Dreadnoughtus. It being a titanosaur in the Titanosauria clade means that it was a very hefty dinosaur, very massive, almost on par with something like Argentinosaurus. And I think they do a decent job at capturing that. I'm also pretty particular for its design, like the original design in Jurassic World Evolution 2, like the original model that they had for it. I don't know. There's something about its head that I think is pretty cool. I think that it's distinguished from other sauropods in the game very well in that manner, and I like the way that its neck looks. So both of those I think look really good. And then finally, this is a little bit of a bonus. Chaos Theory did not officially introduce any new sauropods, unfortunately, but they almost did. Or at least they entertain the idea a little bit. There's this piece of concept art right here that reveals that at one point they at least kind of considered having Bajadasaurus instead of Nasutoceratops during that gas station scene. That would have been awesome. Bajadasaurus and Amargasaurus, they both belong to the family of dinosaurs known as Dicraeosaurids, which are sauropods that had relatively smaller builds and shorter necks. They are very interesting dinosaurs. My favorite one in particular is Brachytrachelopan, which has a very small neck. It's amazing. I would have loved to see Bajadasaurus in this, and its design in this concept art anyway looks really good. It is pretty on par with, I think, the toy design. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, the toy that was released would probably be pretty similar to the way that it looks in the show, and it's a pretty standard Bajadasaurus design. It has a short neck, a shorter build in general. It would have been cool to see a sauropod that was this small in the series. That would have been so cool. Maybe in the future. And of course those spikes. Now, this is a recent thing, but we looking at the spikes of something like Amargasaurus as well as Bajadasaurus shows that the spikes wouldn't have been exposed and layered in keratin. Rather, they would have been more like sails on the animal's head. That's more of a recent development, and I think it would have been fine if they went with this spiked version. Really, the meat and potatoes of it all is that I really wished that this showed up. I think it would have been so cool. I loved the Nasutoceratops portion of that. I love Nasutoceratops. Ceratopsians are really cool, but there is surprisingly a huge lack of sauropods in the Jurassic franchise, and seeing something like Bajadasaurus would have been awesome. So that is something I could probably add to my wish list. If it got this close to the point where it got to concept art, maybe there is hope for the future. But I'll tell you what I really want to see is early sauropodomorphs like this Lufengosaurus. Early sauropodomorphs are truly underrated. Most of them are bipedal. Their hands look like this. They have a small head, a long neck that's typical of later sauropods. Wouldn't that be really cool to see? Specifically Plateosaurus. I would love to see Plateosaurus, but even something like Lufengosaurus. Maybe sometime in the future. There is a Plateosaurus in Jurassic World alive, and it's absolutely jacked. Even if they went with that design, I think it would be fun. That's kind of like another bonus. The Jurassic World of Life Plateosaurus. Yay, here it is. Very awesome. I was very happy to actually find that when I was like, trying to dart these dinosaurs and I saw Plateosaurus. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I like early sauropodomorphs. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling by this point. We'll go ahead and wrap the video up there. Those are all of the on-screen sauropods that showed up in the Jurassic franchise. I hope that we get to see more different ones and things like that. Maybe like Diplodocus. That'd be cool. Or again, maybe some dicraeosaurids like Bajatosaurus or Brachytrachelopan maybe one day. One can hope. But I'd absolutely love to see some early sauropodomorphs that are, bipedal and stuff like that. A nice contrast to the massive quadrupedal sauropods that we often see. Only time will tell with something like that. Be sure to let me know your thoughts. Would you hope to see something like that? Or, do you enjoy the ones that we have right now? Be sure to let me know. And thank you guys so much for watching and have an awesome day.